Hello, everybody. This is House Shrink with another topic of great importance. This one is about, do we have free will? And this, you'll see how important it is and how it affects your life. It affects everything that you do. There are scientists and philosophers that argue that we have no free will, that we're basically a set of behaviors from our biology and our cells and our hormones and so forth, and that determines a chain reaction determines every decision that we make. And they look for ways to explain that and also to prove it scientifically in their own minds, of course. So what happens if you choose to believe that there's no free will, then you have to see how logically consistent that is. And if you have no free will, you have no responsibility for your actions. So if you commit a crime, that's not your fault. If you kill somebody, if you abuse a child, not your fault because you're a product of your biology. Those are the implications of accepting that you have no free will. Also, it's very dangerous because if you believe you have no free will, it's very easy to be manipulated by radical groups. Because if you have no free will, they can give you whatever you need, and then they make decisions for you as the group, but nobody decides because nobody has free will. And what I want to tell you is that I believe, I'm a neuropsychologist, and I believe that there's no evidence out there, no real evidence out there that says that we don't have free will. It's just speculation and bad science. Because one of the arguments that they use is that they'll do a brain function, they'll do a functional MRI, which is watching in real time how your brain functions. And they'll ask you a question, and before you answer the question, there's some neurological processing going on, and they say, well, subconsciously, you already have an answer, you're just going to come out like a robot. It's not true. What happens is that you have these precursors of consciousness, and then you have the precursors of consciousness, and then the decision that you make is yours with the precursors of consciousness. So that's a stronger argument than the other one says, since there's some activity going on before you decide, that means that you have no free will. So it's really very dangerous, actually. And many people believe that you come here, especially the ones who are the atheists that believe that there's no intelligence. Not all atheists believe that there's no free will. Only some, and some don't. So they're separate issues. But the determinists believe that you're here by some accident of nitrogen and oxygen and carbon getting together several million years back, and then organisms got more and more complex till finally there were plants and there were animals, and now we are the product of that. So you have to have tremendous belief in determinism and a tremendous belief and faith in randomness in order to believe that. Because if there's no intelligent design, what the hell are we? What are we doing here? We're just some kind of a random experiment. So I believe that there's intelligent design, that there's intelligence, because in order to predict something, in order to predict, for example, how a tree is going to grow, how a child is going to develop, there has to be some process there that determines order. Otherwise, you couldn't predict anything. And yet, they continue to argue that there is no free will and that there's no intelligent design. And one of the reasons why some people argue that there's no intelligent design, especially atheists, is that they believe that if they agree that there's an intelligent design, then there has to be a designer. And then they have to say God, or there have to be something greater than themselves. So it's quite narcissistic to say that we're here by chance and that there's no design, that we just happen to be here and we have no free will, like we are robots and pawns of the circumstances. That takes responsibility away, and it doesn't allow for a moral compass. It doesn't allow for you to have a moral compass of what's right or what's wrong. And that is the product of the modern education that most kids are getting, and especially in good university, the postmodernism. Postmodernism says there's really there's no universal truth. There's no morality. Everything is relative. There's really nothing to hold on to. So whatever is relative is relative. There's nothing to hold on to. So there's no terrain of right and wrong. and there's no personal responsibility. They never give you a good argument of how that affects then responsibility for negative behavior. There's one philosopher who I think is an idiot who says that the reason that people believe that there's a free will is so that society can punish people when they do something bad. It takes a real brain to think about that. So we have free will, or believe that we have free will, so then we can punish people when they molest a child. How do you like that logic? And this guy is a respectable philosopher. Not in my book, but he's a respectable philosopher in the world of philosophy. So you could be respectable and still make mistakes and be wrong. So getting back to the concept of free will, and if you have any questions about it, if you want to question what I'm saying, then just go ahead and do so, and I'll try to answer it for you. If they're legitimate questions, I will try to answer them for you. So everybody's coming in. We have a huge crowd today. So hundreds of people are coming in. So getting back to the concept of free will, if there is free will, then there's some kind of morality. And in fact, the immune system responds to moral action, which again goes against that sense of not having free will. The immune system responds best to pleasure with service and meaning than just for the sake of service, for the sake of meaning. So what Aristotle called hedonic, which is pleasure for the sake of pleasure, and eudaimonic, which is pleasure with meaning, service. So there's some studies that have shown that the immune system responds better. You have better immunity if you have that eudaimonic pleasure, which means that you find pleasure in service, you find pleasure in purpose and in meaning. So even that will go against the sense that there's no free will and that there's no discerning here of morality. There is. And what's happening with a lot of, especially the young generation, they're lost because they're not giving a grounding. They're not giving, okay, look, this is wrong. This is not relative. This is wrong. And if you're acting like an idiot, you're an idiot because you choose to be an idiot, not because your biology made you an idiot. So it's a way of getting personal responsibility for your action. When you take personal responsibility for your action and you're not an amoeba just floating away, actually you have better health, you're a better person, you're more civilized than other people who believe that you're just here by chance and you're a robot and you can do whatever you want. So it's not like everything goes or anything goes, not like that at all. When you have a sense of free will that you can decide, then you're taking responsibility for your actions. And then whatever you do, you can own it and you can say, yes, this is what I did and I chose to do this. Whether it's right or wrong, you chose to do it. If not, then you become a victim. And we have now a society that loves victims. A victim of this, a victim of that. Nobody takes responsibility for anything. And there's also another situation here that I'll talk about that's politically very incorrect. So be ready for your virgin ears. Don't get too upset. Here's what happens. In our modern society, people are confusing equity with equality. We're not all equal. Some people are short, some people are tall, some are men, some are women, some are good in math, some are good at dance. So we're not equal. We should have equity, but equity with qualifications. That's very important. Equity with qualification. What does that mean? If you want to work for the fire department, and one of the requirements, one of the qualifications or the abilities is that you have to be able to carry 100 pounds. If you weigh 90 pounds and you apply for the job, and if you just happen to be one of the minorities, whatever minority, whether it's a woman or African American or disabled, and you don't get the job, they're discriminating against you. That's so idiotic. You don't get the job independent of whether you're white or black or tall or short, because you don't qualify. If you're going to be a firefighter and you have to carry 100 pounds, which means that you may have to carry a person, and you're not able to do it, then you would probably die in a fire or cause the death of someone else. But what do they do now? They bring down the standards so that everybody can see everybody's equal. And that comes from the postmodernism that I'm talking about. That's what they teach you in college. They don't say postmodernism, but those are the parameters that they teach. So you qualify independent of whatever race or whatever gender or whatever it is, or you don't qualify. And that's how it should be. That's what's so important. Something said here, yeah, it happened to me. I'm a fire medic. Okay, so you see, you also a lot of professors are being fired for stating their truth. Universities are supposed to be from way back from the lyceums of the Aristotles and Plato and Socrates. It was a place for exchange of ideas, not a place for repression. Many professors are losing their jobs because they're stating their truth, which can be debated. You want to debate truth. If you don't agree with something, you debate it, but you don't just sit back and no, you can't talk about this because it's politically incorrect. Political incorrect, in my opinion, is a tyranny and intellectual fascism because there's a lot of compassion, not a lot of empathy if you follow the rules. If you follow the rules, you're wonderful, you're great. If you break the rules, you get hit with an incredible amount of rage and intolerance because you're not following the rules. So now they don't burn you at the stake anymore like they did in the medieval times and before by the Inquisition, but you lose your job, you lose your credibility, you lose your grants. So there's a tremendous amount of repression going on right now. And scientists are losing their backbone in talking about what needs to be said, like the things that I'm saying right now. That people should qualify for a job independent of their background, independent of anything else. Otherwise, what we're doing is the standards are going down more and more and more to facilitate. We're dumbing down the world. And that is not good. That has to do, again, with that postmodernism that says there's no free will, everybody's equal, nobody, if you don't allow someone to do something, you're being prejudiced, and those kind of admonitions that force you to be a robot. So the thing to think about here is that if you decide that you're here and you have free will, that's great. Take responsibility for your action. Become an elegant person. Become responsible for what you do. And have a moral compass. A moral compass that says this is right, this is wrong. Not everything goes. It's not like whatever I do is okay. No, whatever I do is not okay. There's some okay things and not so okay things. So that's the idea. That is the idea of free will. You see the implications that it has. It's had implications on taking responsibility for your actions, implications on what happens if you do something wrong. And actually, there are people, I have seen writings and videos of respectable scientists and philosophers who say criminals should not be punished because it's not their fault. They're just a product of their biology. So you rape a child, well, no, you shouldn't be punished because there you are. You're a product of your biology. And that is royal bullshit, I think, if you'll excuse the scientific term that I just used. That is dangerous, and it takes the responsibility away from the person and allows you to do whatever you want. And that's what happens. So it's very, very dangerous to not have a sense of free will. It's very dangerous to believe that you are a product of your biology. There's a lot in your biology. There's a difference, for example, when your pupils dilate, when a doctor puts a light in your pupils and they constrict with a light, there's no free will there. That's a reflex. But if they ask you if you want to have surgery or not, that is free will. It's not like you all of that is a conglomerate of decisions that come from your biology that made you say yes or no. You have a choice. And that choice is something that needs to be protected. And there are people that die for it. That's why you go to war, to protect that free will and to protect freedom of speech. So I hope that this gets you to think and gets you to see that there's a lot out there that sounds good, that sounds, oh, this is wonderful, they accept who I am. You should be accepted if you're doing the right things. If you're not, you shouldn't be accepted because you're not doing the right things. And you're being dangerous to yourself and to others. So it's very important. Take responsibility for your actions. Allow yourself to believe that you have free will. My thoughts on diagnosing children with ADHD. That's going to be probably another topic. But I think that the attention deficit disorder with or without hyperactivity, I don't particularly think that it's a disorder, nor is it a deficit of attention. It's an abundance of curiosity that needs to be treated, and in most cases it doesn't need to be treated with medication, but that's up to you and your doctor. I don't make those decisions. I have seen patients with side effects of the medications that are being used, and they're not pretty. So it's something that you have to decide with your doctor, but you have free will to decide, yes, I'm going to do this with my child, or no, I'm not going to do this with my child. So what I do is when I used to work with attention deficit disorders, I worked with them as a situation that has too much curiosity. And I know the dopamine model and the transporters of dopamine, I know the whole neurochemistry of it, but it just doesn't mean still that it's a disorder. It is a learned process with some biology, of course, some genetics, that the person becomes tremendously curious, but it's not harnessed. So there are many things that could be done. Tai Chi, Qigong, dancing, Zen slow walk, many other things, meditation, that actually could teach attention to detail. And they're all over the place. You notice that kids with supposedly attention deficit disorder, when they like a video, they can play for hours. So what happened to the deficit disorder? What happened? What happened to the dopamine? They have to have constant novelty, and you can't have constant novelty. So in school, they get bored. Usually they're very intelligent, and they have to go to special classes to learn, to harness their novelty learning, way up there. So that's my thoughts on that. I've written papers on that and treated quite a few children with and adults with attention deficit, both with or without hyperactivity. So that's what I have to say about that. Okay, so getting back to free will. Take responsibility for your actions. Become a good person. Don't be a robot. Don't excuse your behavior. When you're wrong, you're wrong. Say, hey, I'm wrong. I need to fix this. That is so refreshing when you do that. So refreshing, because you say, hey, look, I made a mistake here. You have to have enough self-esteem to be able to say, I made a mistake here. I've had mentors who were pioneers in their fields, in medicine and psychoneuroimmunology, and they all were humble. They all said, no, I don't know this. I'm not sure. I don't have an answer for this. No, I think I was wrong on that. That kind of humbleness is a real sign of someone who is valuable and who's great. The narcissist can never admit that they're wrong. Oh no, I'm never wrong. I'm never wrong. They always find fault in you, and they always look for excuses for their behavior. They always find something wrong with you, and they can never, ever apologize. And if they do it reluctantly, and always because they maybe were forced to apologize. So if you're talking about relationships, it's very important that you are with people that believe that there's free will. Otherwise, they'll do anything to you, and they'll say, I'm sorry, but my biology made me do it. So yes, being humble allows, real humble, not pseudo-humble, allows self-esteem to go up. Pseudo-humble is what they teach you in most cultures. They say, when somebody gives you a compliment, deny it or minimize it. That's pseudo-humbleness. That's not real humbleness. I think you're so good at math. Oh, no, anybody can do it. Thank you. I appreciate you noticing that I'm good at math. That's real humbleness, because you're appreciating the behavior. You're not just talking it out. And unfortunately, you're taught. A little girl will say, Mommy, look how pretty I am. No, you never say you're pretty, darling. You wait till they tell you, and then you deny it. So you see, you're getting a psychotic double bind here, in that they tell you that you should be great, but never acknowledge it. Just pretend that it's not happening. And that's important. To have good self-esteem, you have to be able to have a sense of gratitude, to accept when somebody gives you a gift. And never say no problem. Because those of you who follow my work, you know how I feel about no problem. No problem, it's a superfluous, worthless way of responding. Because what you're doing is you're saying, oh, I wasn't expecting a problem, so there's no problem here. Nobody asked you if there was a problem. All they needed was, you're welcome, or my pleasure. Because your language reflects what's going on inside your head. So no problem, no problem, no problem. You're walking around in a world where avoiding problems like walking on eggshells. So anytime that anybody says anything, please don't say no problem. Say thank you, I appreciate it, my pleasure, whatever you want. Use gratitude rather than no problem paradigm, because that causes a lot of problems. Okay, so I'm going to cut it short today because it's Sunday and I'm going to relax a little. But I wanted to give you a little bit of information. As you know, we can't post this on TikTok because it's more than 60 seconds, but TikTok allows us to download it to other social media. So what I do is I then have it on my social media, on my YouTube channel, which is Dr. Mario Martinez. You'll be able to see it tomorrow. It'll in its entirety. So if you miss what was going on today about whether we have free will, you'll be able to see it tomorrow. And then make sure that you follow my house shrink over here. Follow it, as well as like it if you want it. And also follow the YouTube channel. I have over 500,000 views already on YouTube. And they're some of the videos have over 75 to 100,000 views. So it's really good stuff that I think you'll be able to gain some knowledge. The whole idea here is that TikTok is for a lot of fun and a lot of things that happen here, but it's also to learn something good about yourself that makes you a better person, because now, coming from the house shrink, you can take responsibility for your action, because another thing that happens when you don't take responsibility for your action, you don't change. It's like, and that's how sociopaths work. So they're teaching you, if there's no free will, they're teaching you to be like a sociopath. Oh, that's how it happened, that's how it is. It's nobody's fault. They don't own responsibility. And people like that are terrible in relationships, because all they can do is find something wrong with you. Oh, somebody said, no problem, it's now gone. Thank you, I appreciate that. Anytime that I go to a restaurant and somebody says no problem, I'll say, hey, look, if you want a good tip, get away from the no problem, because I wasn't asking you if there was a problem. I was just thanking you. Oh, okay. And some of them will say, no problem, because they're so conditioned to respond that way that they have a hard time just breaking away from it. So from now on, make me a promise. Since you have free will, no more no problems. Be grateful for the gift and say thank you. You'll see how good you feel when you start doing that. And you'll see how people will appreciate it. Because the other one, it's a habit. Yeah, it's a habit. That's right. Somebody said it's a habit. But you can break habits within a few weeks. You can break habits even faster. If you're conscious of what you're saying, here's one way to do it. Very simple. It'll change immediately. Somebody says, oh, you did such a good job. And you stop. Instead of, no reflex, stop, breathe, and this, thank you very much. If you respond reflexively, you'll say no problem. But if you stop, is anytime that anybody says something to me that it's supposed to be a thank you, I'm going to stop. You break the habit, and then you say, you're welcome, my pleasure. The neural maps will change, and your habit will change, because you weren't born saying no problem. You learned that from our culture, and it's a bad thing from our culture to have those kind of things like no problem and all those disfluencies that you hear about. And one more thing, I always want to remind you: do not ghost anyone. Take responsibility. Here's another thing that happens when you don't take responsibility for your action. You don't want to be with anyone anymore. You don't want to talk to anybody. You do the ghosting. That's a cowardly act. It's a lack of courtesy to the other person. It's a lack of respect for yourself, because you don't have enough self-esteem to say, look, this is over, or I don't want to talk to you anymore. See, it takes more courage to be able to do that. The other one is a cowardly act, spineless, and there's no room for ghosting. So do not tolerate it. Especially if somebody is ghosting you in a relationship, go out and celebrate that you were ghosted because you got rid of an imbecile or a spineless person. Very good. If they ghost you, I'm so glad I was ghosted, because I sure as hell don't want to spend time with somebody like that who doesn't have a backbone. So, just a few pearls of wisdom here. I'm a clinical psychologist, and I'm not doing therapy here. I'm just doing educational information that you can take. And remember, you have self-esteem built by taking responsibility for your action. You have a set of morals that you can start following. And what will happen is you'll become a better person, and you become someone laudable, someone that people respect and want to be around. And if you're in a group that believes that you just do anything you want, everything's okay, get the hell out. Because those groups are a bunch of people who have no self-esteem. And they'll accept anything. Not that they accept you. They accept anything so they can let you in. And you don't learn anything. You don't learn any ethics. You don't learn any morals, because anything goes. anything doesn't go. Only some things go. So that's about it. I am going to be leaving very soon. And thank you for many, many people showed up. I'm very glad that you're here. And if you just joined us, I was talking about free will, whether we have free will or not. And yes, we have free will. And if you missed the whole thing, you can go back tomorrow to my YouTube channel, Dr. Mario Martinez, so you can watch the whole thing. Let's see, you're awesome. It's taken time. It's taken me years to move through from my narcissistic eyes or executives. Yes. Well, whatever it is that you wrote, it takes a while, but with these techniques, you'll move very quickly. At warp speed, you'll be moving because you're taking responsibility. And the first thing before you can change anything, you have to take responsibility for what you're doing. If you see it as some kind of act of chaos or some kind of random act, then you don't take responsibility. But when you say, wait a minute, I did this, I'm the only one that can change. Oh, ex-husband. Okay, I got it. Narcissist ex-husband. They're not the best, let me tell you. Or ex-wives, they're not the best, or ex-partners. Narcissists do not make good partners because they're unwilling to take responsibility for their actions. They're unwilling to feel any empathy, and they're unwilling to admit that you're right about something. It's all a contest. And when they wake up in the morning, you have to thank them for waking up, because if they don't, they think that the sun doesn't come up. It's that bad. But you see, narcissism is a self-esteem disorder. It's a personality disorder based on low self-esteem. And it may not make any logical sense because you think these people think they're great. They're overcompensating for their low self-esteem. When anything happens to them that really hurts them, they decompensate and they go into depression, they fall apart. So they're not very well put together. They live in eggshells, and it's very easy to fall. They blame and twist you until you think you actually did it. Exactly. They're excellent at turning things around. And after a while, since you're a normal person and you're willing to take responsibility, and everyone has some action when there's a disagreement, everyone is co-author, so you say, okay, yeah, you're right, yeah. But they'll never say, you know something, what I did yesterday was not right, and I want to make up for it. You're not going to hear that. You're not going to hear a lot of apologies. You're not going to hear a lot of people saying, look, this is my fault. Not going to happen. So don't expect it. If you're with a narcissist, get some serious therapy, and if it doesn't work, get the hell out, because it'll ruin your life, and it'll ruin your health there, because that kind of life is very, very disempowering when you're with someone. The value of relationships that you empower each other, you co-author goodness with each other, not to be put down and just to be a doormat for someone else. That's not healthy. Okay, so remember, if you just joined, you can see this whole video on my YouTube channel, Dr. Mario Martinez. You can go there, and also follow me there and follow me here in House Shrink. So it's very wonderful to see you here, and to know that you're following the work, and hopefully some of you are learning some of this and practicing it in your life. So enjoy, have a wonderful day, and take responsibility for your action.